That painting, golden hair flying, saber raised, Custer charging headlong into a hopeless fight and going down in one final glorious stand. It's hung in bars, textbooks, and living rooms for 150 years as Custer's last stand. Almost none of it is true, not the hair, not the saber, not even how he died. On June 25, 1876, Custer led about 210 men of the 7th Cavalry straight at one of the largest native encampments ever assembled. Thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors camped along the Little Bighorn River in what's now Montana. In under an hour, every one of his men was dead. Here's what actually happened on that hill, starting with the detail everyone gets wrong first. That flowing golden mane in every painting. Gone by the time the campaign started. Custer had it cut short that spring, practical and unglamorous, because long hair was a liability on a hot, dusty campaign trail. The legendary look painters kept using came from photographs taken years earlier. Not from the man who actually rode into that valley. Next, the Sabers. Every dramatic painting shows cavalrymen swinging swords in the thick of battle, but the 7th Cavalry left theirs behind in the supply wagons before the fight even began. Custer ordered it, worried the metal would clank and give away their position during the approach. His men fought that day almost entirely with pistols and carbines, on foot as much as on horseback. Nothing like the sweeping saber charge in the paintings. Then there's the death itself, the single most reproduced image in American military art. Custer shot while charging heroically across the river. That specific scene traces back to only 2 second-hand native accounts filtered through translators, retold for years, and eventually simplified into the version that made it into paint. Most historians today think Custer actually died later in the fight, further up the hill, in the chaos of a collapsing formation, not a dramatic river charge. And here's maybe the biggest myth of all. The doomed, dignified last stand, men calmly forming a heroic circle and fighting to the last breath together. The archaeological record tells a messier story. Custer's 5 companies were split apart fast, isolated in small pockets across the hillside, and overrun piece by piece, a brutal collapse, not one unified, glorious defense. Some soldiers did break away from the hilltop during the fighting, and for decades that got flattened into a story about panic and cowardice. But the battlefield evidence, spent cartridge casings, body positions, and native testimony, shows many of those men kept fighting and died holding new ground rather than simply running. They just didn't die in the one photogenic spot the legend needed them to. So why did this particular defeat get remembered as a glorious, romantic stand, instead of what it actually was? A fast, total tactical collapse. Timing. News of Custer's death reached the East Coast on July 6, 1876, just 2 days after the nation's 4th of July centennial celebrations. Newspapers needed a story that fit the mood of national pride, not one about the Army's most humiliating defeat of the era. So the story got shaped to match. That framing stuck, and it conveniently buried something else too. This was above all a decisive victory for the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors, led by figures like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, who outthought and outfought a professional army on their own terms. The doomed heroic stand narrative made a lopsided American military disaster feel noble instead of embarrassing, and it quietly pushed the winning side of the story into the background for generations. None of this makes Little Bighorn any less dramatic. If anything, the real story, a hasty, poorly scouted attack that fell apart in under an hour against a much larger, better prepared force, is more compelling than the painting ever was. It's just messier, less flattering, and a lot less convenient for the story America wanted to tell itself in 1876. So the next time you see that painting, the golden hair, the raised saber, the heroic circle, you'll know it's basically historical fan fiction, built from 2 second-hand accounts and a century of convenient retelling. If this kind of "the story you know isn't the story that happened" video is your thing, subscribe, because we've got plenty more famous battles to put under the microscope. And drop a comment telling us which legendary last stand, Thermopylae, the Alamo, anywhere, you want us to fact-check next.